Welcome to Dream or a Night, everyone. The place where we come together to listen, to unwind, and to drift gently into that sweet, peaceful sleep we all crave. I'm Daniel, your host tonight, and oh, how grateful I am that you've chosen to spend this quiet evening with us. Thank you so much for being here. Can you even imagine it? A teenage girl starting from absolute nothing, rising up to become the only woman in all of Chinese history to rule as emperor. Wow, just let that sink in for a second. How on earth does something like that happen? It wasn't some stroke of luck, and it definitely wasn't just a clever political marriage. No way. Instead, Wu Zetian dove headfirst into a deadly cutthroat game of palace intrigue that would put today's slickest politicians to shame. She outsmarted everyone, systematically taking down rivals and masterfully manipulating 3 different emperors until she seized ultimate power for herself. Incredible, right? Come with me on this captivating journey back to ancient China, where I'll unfold the astonishing story of how Wu Zetian went from a powerless young servant girl to the most feared and revered ruler the empire had ever seen. She wielded her razor-sharp intelligence, unbreakable ruthless ambition, and impeccable timing like weapons. Oh, the sheer audacity of it all. This epic tale stretches across decades filled with heart-pounding palace conspiracies, heartbreaking family betrayals, and chilling political murders that completely reshaped an entire dynasty. Are you ready? I'll guide you step by step through her breathtaking rise to power, and by the time we're done, you'll see exactly how she pulled off what everyone thought was impossible. Isn't that exciting? But to really feel the weight of Wu Zetian's triumph, we have to step into the world she was born into. Doesn't that make sense? Picture this, the early Tang dynasty. When China was basking in a glorious golden age of prosperity and breathtaking cultural achievement, everything seemed so vibrant and alive. The Tang capital, Chang'an, was nothing short of miraculous, the largest city on the planet, buzzing with over 1 million souls from dozens of different cultures and far-flung kingdoms. Can you believe it? Merchants streamed in along the legendary Silk Road, hauling exotic treasures and goods from places as distant as Persia and even Rome. The streets must have been a sensory explosion. Buddhist temples rose majestically beside serene Taoist shrines and scholarly Confucian academies. Art flourished wildly, poetry soared to new heights, and scholarship bloomed under generous imperial patronage. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Yet, hidden beneath all that glittering splendor was a society locked in ironclad hierarchies and overwhelming male dominance. How stifling that must have felt. The Confucian order placed the emperor at the absolute pinnacle. Then government officials, farmers, artisans, and finally merchants at the bottom. And women, they didn't even fit into the hierarchy at all. They were defined purely by their ties to men as obedient daughters, dutiful wives or devoted mothers. Heartbreaking, isn't it? For a woman back then, the greatest dream, the highest possible aspiration, was simply to bear sons who could bring honor and glory to the family name. Female ambition? Forget it. It wasn't just frowned upon, it was completely unthinkable, almost forbidden by the very air they breathed. How could anyone break free from that? That's the world little Wu Zetian entered as Wu Zhao, daughter of Wu Shihuo, a successful timber merchant who'd loyally backed the Tang dynasty in its climb to power. Her family wasn't the usual aristocratic elite. Most concubines came from ancient, prestigious clans with deep court connections stretching back generations. But the Wu family, they were prosperous, sure, but basically upstart merchants, sneered at by the old nobility who boasted centuries-old bloodlines. Talk about starting at a disadvantage. Wu Shihuo had 3 wives, which was totally normal for wealthy men of that era, and Wu Zhao's mother, the graceful Lady Yang, was his second wife. That put young Wu Zhao in a tricky, vulnerable spot right from the start in the family pecking order. She was legitimate, yes, but not the main heir. Her older half-brothers from the first wife were set to inherit everything. The business, the properties, all of it. Those early years of scrambling for attention and scarce resources in such a complicated household, they turned out to be priceless training. Almost like a preview of the far more dangerous imperial politics she'd face later. Who would have guessed? Even as a small child, Wu Zhao shone with an intelligence and fierce determination that made her stand out dramatically from other girls her age. While most wealthy daughters were drilled only in gentle domestic arts embroidery, music, graceful household management, Wu Zhao somehow unlocked a far richer education. Records hint that her father, spotting her extraordinary gifts early on, boldly let her study right alongside her brothers. Revolutionary. She mastered reading and writing classical Chinese, delved deep into history and philosophy, and even trained in mathematics and basic military strategy subjects no girl was supposed to touch. For her time, this was earth-shattering. Most women, even from noble families, couldn't read or write at all. Literacy was seen as a manly domain. It might make a woman too bold, too independent, and, who knows, unmarriageable. Scandalous, right? But Wu Zhao soaked it all up like a sponge, building not mere literacy, but true intellectual depth and sophistication. Later, this would let her hold her own in debates with the empire's top scholars, and even pen her own powerful imperial edicts. What a force she was becoming. And her beauty, oh my goodness, it was legendary. Though we have to remember that later accounts were coloured by political spin. Still, sources from her era paint her as stunningly gorgeous, flawless skin, refined and elegant features, and a commanding presence that turned heads wherever she went. But the real magic? Chinese historians described her as having dragon phoenix charisma, that rare, almost mystical power to captivate everyone, drawing fierce loyalty and chilling fear in equal measure. Chills, right? Tragedy struck suddenly when her father died without warning. Wu Zhao was only 12, and overnight, everything changed for the worse. By strict inheritance laws, the entire family fortune went to the eldest son from the first wife. Wu Zhao, her mother, and younger siblings were left relying on the half-brother's goodwill. And let's be honest, that goodwill was pretty thin. How terrifying that must have been. This brutal plunge into powerlessness and money worries scarred Wu Zhao deeply, shaping her entire outlook on life. She saw with her own eyes how fast fortunes could flip, and how utterly vulnerable women were in a world that gave them zero independent rights, legal or financial. Devastating. But did she give in? No. Instead, a fire ignited inside her. She started plotting her daring escape from a future of quiet poverty and total dependence. What courage. Then came the golden chance. Emperor Taizong put out a call for beautiful young women to join his vast imperial harem, a common tradition. with emperors keeping hundreds of concubines in strict ranks. For many families, it was a huge honor, a ticket to higher status. But for Wu Zhao, it was freedom, a lifeline to shatter her birth limits and step straight into the heart of power. At just 14, she was picked from thousands of hopefuls, becoming a fifth-rank concubine titled Kei-ren, meaning talented person. Not the top tier, sure, but enough to slip inside the Forbidden City and stand near the most powerful man alive. Heart racing yet? The imperial harem was its own ruthless universe, a tangled web of fierce competition, fragile alliances, and deadly intrigue that dwarf the outside world's politics. Hundreds of women lived in opulent apartments, served by hordes of eunuchs and maids, but most never even glimpsed the emperor, let alone bore his children or swayed his choices. The majority faded into luxurious but lonely obscurity, forgotten forever. So sad. Emperor Taizong, originally Li Shimin, ranks among China's greatest leaders ever. He helped his father found the Tang dynasty and led daring campaigns that stretched China's borders farther than ever before. Brilliant, cultured, deeply dedicated to fair rule, but also a seasoned middle-aged man with dozens of wives and concubines. What were the odds he'd notice one young girl in that crowd? Wu Zetian knew the odds were slim from day one, but she refused to play the usual game. Other concubines banked everything on beauty or dainty talents like dance or poetry to catch his eye. Not her. She chose a radically smarter path. She made herself utterly indispensable. Using her rare education, she volunteered for administrative chores the others scorned as lowly. She read and wrote better than many officials and grasped bureaucracy intuitively. Need documents copied or foreign letters translated. Wu Zhao stepped up eagerly. Want someone to read ancient histories aloud? She delivered flawless pronunciation, plus sharp, thoughtful insights that sparked real discussion. Even more brilliantly, she studied the emperor himself, like a devoted scholar poring over sacred scrolls. She memorized his likes, moods, worries, even hidden insecurities. While rivals entertained with flirtation or songs, Wu Zhao became his vital intellectual partner and trusted confidant, irreplaceable. This took monumental patience and iron self-discipline, didn't it? Months blurred into years as she patiently nurtured their bond, all while keenly watching the swirling palace politics. She mapped the power players, decoded factional rifts among officials, and quietly built her own web of allies. Servants, eunuchs, low-level bureaucrats with priceless gossip and access. Isn't her story already gripping you? A young woman, armed only with her mind and unbreakable will, starting to weave her destiny in the shadows of the most powerful court on earth. And this is just the beginning. Her real trials and triumphs are yet to come. What an inspiration. What a thrill to follow her path. Oh wow, can you imagine the sheer chaos of that imperial court? It was completely splintered into all these rival factions, battling non-stop over regional roots, clashing philosophies, and those deep-seated personal loyalties that never died. And dominating the whole scene were those powerhouse founding families who'd been there from the Tang dynasty's very start. They strutted around like they had a divine right to eternal control. The nerve of it, right? These elite aristocratic clans looked down on fresh faces like Wu Zhao with total disdain and pulled every string they could to stop the emperor from elevating anyone not in their tight-knit circle. But hold on, this is where Wu Zhao's brilliance shines through in the most thrilling way. She saw super fast that her merchant background, the thing everyone pegged as a huge handicap, was actually her ace in the hole in this viper's nest. Seriously, think about the advantage. No pre-existing faction ties meant she could slip effortlessly between groups, dodging instant enemy tags that would have sunk others. Isn't that clever? On top of that, she truly grasped commerce and the nuts and bolts of economics practical stuff those haughty aristocrats wouldn't deign to touch, because it wasn't noble enough for them. Wu Zhao owned that knowledge completely. As months rolled into full years, Wu Zhao's sway over Emperor Taizong just skyrocketed steady, relentless gains that must have felt exhilarating. She began with basic document copying, but quickly leveled up to drafting them on her own. From merely reciting historical texts, she progressed to unpacking their deep political lessons alongside him. Soon enough, she wasn't passively absorbing court debates anymore. She was boldly contributing her own razor-sharp views. The emperor, who'd originally dismissed her as yet another lovely harem addition, finally recognized her phenomenal intellect and began leaning heavily on her insights. What an incredible shift talk about earning respect the hard way. Still, Wu Zhao's vision reached so much further than just being the emperor's top concubine. How could it not? Deep inside, she knew her current perch, glamorous as it seemed, was terrifyingly unstable. One slip, and imperial affection could evaporate in an instant. Poof, gone. Fallen concubines frequently wound up banished to isolated temples in the middle of nowhere, or suffered fates even more grim. Scary stuff, huh? She refused to risk that. Absolutely not. She craved a rock-solid base of power, which demanded branching out way beyond her intimate tie to the emperor himself. That's when she cautiously, brilliantly started forging bonds with his kids, zeroing in especially on the heir, Prince Li Chengqian. Risky territory for sure. Protocol clamped down hard on any contact between concubines and princes. Yet Wu Zhao navigated it like a pro, always framing her help as strictly educational or admin-related, zero hint of anything improper. She volunteered for his letters, fed him crucial scoops on court intrigue, and step by careful step became as vital to the next emperor as she was to the present one. Sadly, or perhaps fate's clever twist, that deep investment in Prince Li Chengqian became a gut-wrenching error that nearly torpedoed her whole rising career right then and there. The prince, heir though he was, wrestled with dark personal struggles, turning him erratic and unsteady. Such a gamble for her. He simply wasn't shaping up as the solid partner she'd banked on. Li Chengqian grew up suffocating under astronomical expectations as crown prince of the planet's dominant empire. Court eyes dissected his every action. Strict Confucian mentors controlled his studies rigidly, and the looming emperor role crushed his spirit. Instead of rising strong, he lashed out in ever riskier rebellions. Yikes, trouble brewing. His fixation on Turkish ways grew intense. He adopted their outfits, habits, even warfare methods. Totally unacceptable, especially with Tang forces clashing against those same tribes northward. Worse still, he hung with questionable crowds and behaved in ways that horrified observers as unfit for royalty. What on earth possessed him? Wu Zhao observed it all with mounting dread. Her gut screamed, warning. The prince's recklessness painted a bullseye on his back for rivals, and her association dragged her into the crosshairs too. All that poured-in effort now loomed as a dangerous weakness. Devastating. Then, catastrophe struck. Prince Li Chengqian got entangled in a shocking plot to kill his father and snatch the throne ahead of time. Luckily, uncovered early no blood spilled, but the crown prince's involvement alone unleashed pandemonium across the court. Emperor Taizong reeled from the betrayal picture, a father's heart shattering. He ordered a fierce probe into all linked to the prince. Wu Zhao teetered on ruin her documented ties, made officials suspect her of stoking the rebellion. Pure terror. The sweep was merciless. Interrogations, torture, executions for many accused. Yet Wu Zhao's long-game networking proved life-saving. Cross-faction bonds she'd cultivated, shone key figures vouched fiercely for her. Crucially, her tangible value as the emperor's trusted admin aide and thoughtful confidant had amassed massive goodwill, buffering her from fatal charges. Taizong concluded she was innocent, naive, manipulated by the prince, not scheming alongside him. Huge exhale. This preserved their bond while letting him heal from his son's stab. That nightmare conspiracy schooled Wu Zhao profoundly in cutthroat politics lessons etched forever. 1. Hinging everything on one ally, however sensible, risks total collapse. Sudden quirks or events could shatter it all. 2. Cross-faction friendships were lifesavers. Survival relied on diverse supporters ready to defend her, not one block. Biggest insight: real safety wasn't tethering to any lone figurehead. Nope, she must embed herself as irreplaceably valuable to the whole imperial apparatus. Too expert, too networked to remove without massive cost. Genius pivot. Prince Li Chengqian's disgrace and exile, a tragic tumble, prompted Taizong to crown ninth son, Li Ji heir. Li Ji contrasted sharply, diligent, tradition-honoring, earnestly gearing for rule, yet young, green, visibly daunted by the colossal burden. Wu Zhao sensed golden potential. Yes, ditching past charm tactics with Li Chengqian, she strategized meticulously for Li Ji. Goal: essential asset for his eventual reign, not mere pal. She analyzed him exhaustively, personality, passions, vulnerabilities like with his dad. Li Ji, bright but self-doubting, book-smart on classics, yet zero hands-on empire management. Critically, advisors either overly timid for candor or self-serving. Wu Zhao infiltrated his circle seamlessly, not displacing, but adding unique value. She dished forbidden gossip and faction maps his prim tutors avoided, delivered candid policy critiques his yes-men shied from. Subtly, she linked him to reality beyond palace walls. Her merchant past and brushes with hardship let her translate policy impacts on common folk beyond elite advisors' grasp, cocooned in privilege. This demanded razor-thin balance nail-biting. Useful enough for his shield and backing, yet not overreaching to seem manipulative. Loyalty and smarts on display cloaked in deference elite tightrope walk. Complications spiked as Taizong's vitality waned. 50s, battle-weary and duty-exhausted, illness loomed, succession buzz, urgent. Officials jockeyed wildly for post-transition clout. Future emperor influence race turned ferocious. Wu Zhao straddled dual realms, Taizong's established court, years invested, and Li Ji's budding one, fresh alliances forging. How did she juggle without dropping everything? Oh my goodness. Can you believe the sheer nerve and skill it took? Managing both those crucial relationships at the same time demanded nothing short of extraordinary diplomatic finesse and razor-sharp political intelligence talk about walking a tightrope over a pit of snakes. Wu Zhao had to keep proving her irreplaceable value to the reigning emperor, all while quietly building rock-solid credibility with his heir. And the whole time, she couldn't let even a hint of disloyalty or naked ambition slip through, because that could shatter her standing with either man in an instant. How exhausting that must have been. This insane tightrope act got even more complicated, heart-poundingly so, because father and son, even with their deep mutual respect and genuine affection, were such different people with clashing priorities and totally opposite governing styles that sometimes put them directly at odds. Wow! Emperor Taizong was this legendary warrior scholar who charged into battle himself, leading armies to conquer vast territories. He thrived on bold, direct action, raw personal courage, and lightning-fast, decisive leadership. His whole approach to ruling was hands-on and super pragmatic, forged in the fires of military command, where he'd learned to make life or death calls with whatever incomplete info he had. What a powerhouse! In stunning contrast, Crown Prince Li Ji was way more thoughtful, introspective, and cautious, almost the polar opposite. He loved studying problems inside and out before ever acting, consulting a whole circle of advisors before deciding anything, and always weighing those long-term consequences instead of chasing quick wins. His style was collaborative, systematic, and team-oriented compared to his dad's. But yeah, it could drag on and feel indecisive at times. Fascinating differences, right? But Wu Zhao, she adapted like a chameleon, brilliantly tailoring her approach to each man's unique personality and preferences. With Emperor Taizong, she zeroed in on practical, no-nonsense solutions and those immediate, tangible benefits he craved. She'd lay out information crisp and concise, hand him crystal-clear recommendations, and always show exactly how her ideas synced perfectly with his current priorities and policies. Her talks with him were straight-up direct, confident, and laser-focused on results boom, just what he needed. With Crown Prince Li Ji, though, she switched gears to something far more nuanced and layered, gentler. Almost. She'd lay out multiple angles on tricky issues, openly acknowledge uncertainties and possible hiccups, and stress how vital it was to build real consensus across factions before big changes. Her interactions felt more respectful and teamwork-driven, positioning herself as this invaluable resource backing his decision process rather than pushing hard for any one outcome. Smart, huh? This clever double strategy paid off huge for years, absolutely brilliantly. It let Wu Zhao solidify her position with both the sitting emperor and the future one, all while dodging those vicious factional wars that wiped out so many other court players during messy succession times. Incredible survival skills. But oh no, it also opened up fresh vulnerabilities that would push her political genius to the absolute brink soon enough. As Emperor Taizong's health kept slipping away, heartbreaking to watch, I'm sure. Whispers started swirling about some improper, scandalous relationship between Wu Zhao and Crown Prince Li Ji. Those rumors felt almost inevitable, didn't they? They'd been spending so much time together, and her blazing intelligence plus bold ambition were impossible to miss. In a court world that mostly saw women as sexual objects instead of serious political players, Any deep interaction between a gorgeous concubine and a young prince got twisted through that steamy romantic filter right away. And those rumors? They were downright lethal because they smashed straight into sacred rules around imperial succession. Concubines belonged exclusively to the current emperor, full loyalty expected, no exceptions. Even hinting that one was cozying up to possible heirs screamed treason, adultery, or worse. Even if it was 100% pure politics and admin work, just the whiff of impropriety could doom everyone involved, terrifying stakes. Wu Zhao saw her hard-built empire crumbling. How panic-inducing. She couldn't keep deepening ties with Li Ji without inviting accusations that might end in execution. But ditching all that investment in the future emperor, that would trash the security and power she'd fought tooth and nail for. No way. Her fix? Classically bold and gutsy, love it. Instead of hiding or downplaying the prince connection, she flipped the whole narrative. She'd turn that seeming weakness into a killer strategic edge by rewriting the conversation's rules entirely. As Emperor Taizong lay on his deathbed, such a poignant, tense moment, Wu Zhao made a history-shattering call. No passive waiting for fate. She seized control of her destiny in a way no Chinese woman ever had. That daring gamble, with its mind-blowing fallout, kicked off right with the emperor's passing and a thrilling new chapter in her unstoppable climb to supreme power. His death closed one glorious era, but launched Wu Zhao's riskiest bet, ever edge-of-your-seat stuff. Ancient tradition was brutal. Deceased emperors' concubines got two grim options buried alive to serve in the afterlife, or heads shaved, shipped to distant monasteries as Buddhist nuns forever. Neither left room for politics, or freedom devastating. End to any influence. Most concubines saw it as the sad, unavoidable, close to their fleeting luxury and relevance, fading into total obscurity, erased from history and the empire's future. But Wu Zhao, after more than 10 years prepping meticulously, she flat out rejected both fates. No chance. Taizong's funeral was this jaw-dropping spectacle of imperial splendor stretching months grand beyond words. His body rested in state inside the awe-inspiring Daming Palace as dignitaries flooded Chang'an to honor him. Buddhist monks chanted soul-soothing prayers. Confucian scholars crafted soaring eulogies praising his triumphs, while Taoist priests wove rituals for serene afterlife passage. Wu Zhao played her mourning role flawlessly, perfect propriety. White mourning robes, tears timed just right, every intricate protocol followed. To watchers, she looked like any heartbroken concubine bracing for her discarded future. Yet under that perfect mask of submissive grief, Wu Zhao orchestrated the boldest power play in Chinese history chills. In those chaotic weeks between death and coronation, she secretly messaged Crown Prince Li Ji-sun Emperor Gaozong. Those messages? Insanely risky. Any contact could scream pre-existing adultery, contents lost forever, but impact crystal clear. Instead of monastic exile, new Emperor Gaozong stepped in dramatically. He declared her admin genius, an intellect too precious for cloistered prayer, been recalled to court for government service. Shockwaves hit the establishment unprecedented. No emperor ever reclaimed Dad's concubine. Officials horrified at moral breach. Monks scandalized over skipped rites. Even common folk gossiped wildly about the young ruler keeping father's women close. But Gaozong wasn't rash. He was thoughtful, methodical, having watched Wu Zhao's talents for years. Unlike battle-hardened Taizong ascending experienced, Gaozong was young, green in real governance. Tang Empire faced urgent threats: northern Turkish raids, Korean resistance, provincial rebellions flaring, bureaucracy packed with aristocratic clans pushing personal agendas, not always loyal to him. Solving that mess needed sharp, fully loyal advisors. Wu Zhao perfect, proven smarts from Taizong years, merchant roots, no rival power base, controversial recall tying her fate to his protection. Her loyalty? Rock solid, unlike elite advisors. Oh my gosh, what a brilliant and deeply personal move. The Emperor's choice to bring Wu Zhao back wasn't just some whim. It was fueled by genuine trust and that rare intellectual spark she ignited in him, the kind that made conversations fly. He genuinely admired how she challenged and stimulated his mind in ways few others could. But let's be real, it was also an incredibly shrewd political play. By recalling her, he gained this extraordinary asset, someone perfectly equipped to steer him through the stormy, treacherous waters of his early reign. How empowering that must have felt for her after everything. When Wu Zhao made her triumphant return to the imperial court, it wasn't in her old role as a mere concubine, absolutely not. She stepped in as something revolutionary, something never seen before in all of Chinese history. A woman serving as a full-fledged government official with legitimate administrative duties and real political muscle. Her official title might have seemed humble and unassuming on paper, but wow, her actual influence. It was enormous, far-reaching, and growing fast. She enjoyed direct, anytime access to the Emperor himself, dove headfirst into critical policy discussions, and soon started quietly but decisively shaping major calls on domestic rule and even foreign relations. Can you feel the electricity in the air? Of course, her very first massive hurdle was earning legitimacy with the deeply entrenched court bureaucracy, most of whom gawked at her appointment like it was some outrageous, dangerous break from everything sacred about gender roles and government tradition. These lifelong officials had clawed their way up through brutal literary exams, elite family networks, and ruthless faction games. Then, suddenly, bam! Here's this woman with straight-to-the-emperor access and clear policy sway. It rocked their entire understanding of how the system was meant to operate. Talk about threatening. Yet Wu Zhao met that wall of resistance with her trademark razor-sharp intelligence and almost superhuman patience. She was masterful. Rather than charging in aggressively or trying to steamroll the old establishment, she cleverly slipped through and around the existing structures, like water finding cracks. She smartly started in areas where her unique life experience and skills gave her undeniable edges that even the biggest skeptics couldn't ignore. For example, growing up as a merchant's daughter handed her priceless, street-level insights into trade and economic policy that those lofty aristocratic officials simply lacked. They'd never gotten their hands dirty with real commerce. So when fierce arguments erupted over tax systems, business regulations, or massive infrastructure projects, Wu Zhao brought practical, boots-on-the-ground views rooted in actual experience, not just book theory. And guess what? Her suggestions frequently outperformed the classics-only ideas from officials whose economics knowledge stopped at ancient texts. Results spoke loud. How could they argue with success? She also brilliantly tapped her long years of careful court watching and relationship nurturing to become this invaluable fountain of intel on faction twists, hidden alliances, and personal grudges among the power players. Emperor Gaozong, like any wise ruler navigating a minefield, desperately needed that intricate map of who was allied with whom and where the knives were hidden to make smart hires and head off plots. Wu Zhao's encyclopedic grasp of palace intrigue, it turned her into his indispensable secret weapon, resource pure gold. Even more subtly and cleverly, she began positioning herself as the vital link between the emperor and everyday groups that snooty traditional advisors either misunderstood or couldn't reach at all. Her modest origins let her speak with real authority about what merchants, hard-working farmers, and skilled artisans actually cared about, and feared voices those privileged elites rarely heard authentically. And being a woman, that gave her exclusive windows into the imperial harem's world and the private concerns of court ladies' information no male advisor ever accessed. What a multifaceted masterstroke. This layered, thoughtful strategy gradually but undeniably locked Wu Zhao in as an absolutely crucial part of Emperor Gaozong's innermost circle. Officials who'd originally fought her appointment with everything they had slowly came around, recognizing her worth and even starting to court her support for their own agendas. Faction leaders who'd once written her off as some irrelevant outsider began seeing her as a powerful potential partner whose emperor connection could lift their causes. Incredible reversal. But oh, the higher Wu Zhao climbed in political influence, the sharper the new dangers became. She had to thread those needles with exquisite care. The more vital she grew to the emperor's administration, the more alarming she appeared to those long-established power centers itching to clip her wings. And the absolute fiercest opposition, it exploded from the empress herself and her sprawling imperial in-laws, who'd fully expected to own the new reign completely. Empress Wang had married Li Zhi years before the throne was his, so she had every legitimate reason to anticipate that empress status would catapult her into serious court dominance. As the official wife, she was supposed to reign as the empire's premier woman, controlling the household and quietly steering policies touching women and family life. Instead, heartbreaking for her, she watched herself get steadily sidelined by Wu Zhao's skyrocketing sway over her own husband. The emperor was devoting far more time hashing out government strategy with Wu Zhao than sharing personal moments with his actual wife. Court gossips couldn't miss it. Wu Zhao's counsel carried way heavier weight in big decisions than anything the empress said. Devastating personal blow. But it went way beyond embarrassment. This posed lethal political danger to her entire clan. The mighty Wang family had sunk massive resources into her marriage to the future emperor, counting on her position to deliver prime government posts, juicy contracts, and serious policy leverage. If Wu Zhao kept surging at the empress's expense, all those carefully placed bets would crumble, and rival families would swoop in to feast. Stakes couldn't be higher. Empress Wang's fightback laid bare both her own strategic shortcomings and the massive gulf between her conventional playbook and Wu Zhao's innovative brilliance. Instead of duking it out on intellect or administrative skill, where she'd likely lose, she leaned hard into championing old-school gender norms and moral correctness. she styled herself as the fierce protector of sacred traditions against Wu Zhao's scary new ways. That angle scored some early traction with conservative officials already uneasy about a woman wielding government power. Empress Wang insisted that letting a former concubine join policy talks trashed core ideals of imperial dignity and Confucian ethics. She hinted darkly that the emperor relying so heavily on Wu Zhao's advice was improper, maybe even poisoning the moral bedrock of righteous rule. Yet here's where her strategy cracked wide open. It delivered zero practical substitute for what Wu Zhao brought to the table. Sure, the empress could criticize the influence all day, but she couldn't replicate Wu Zhao's administrative mastery, political intuition, or economic brilliance. Her attacks rested on lofty, abstract ideals rather than hard, measurable wins, which landed weakly on an emperor buried in real-world crises needing real solutions. Wu Zhao spotted the genuine threat Empress Wang posed. But she also knew charging straight at her would backfire spectacularly. Any blatant showdown between official wife and trusted advisor would force Emperor Gaozong to pick a side, and ancient protocol overwhelmingly favored the empress. Direct fight? Bad idea. Wu Zhao chose stealth, subtlety, and superiority instead. Her brilliant countermove, become even more utterly indispensable while quietly exposing how outdated traditional methods fell short. Whenever policy battles flared, Wu Zhao reliably delivered smarter, more workable fixes than anyone else, including veiled better options than whatever the Empress's camp pushed. Administrative fires popped up. She extinguished them faster and more thoroughly than the usual sluggish bureaucracy. Most crucially, Wu Zhao started meticulously documenting and spotlighting her own wins on major projects. When her ideas spiked tax revenues, she gently ensured the emperor fully grasped her pivotal role. When her insights smoothed diplomatic messes or headed off rebellions, she made certain those triumphs got recorded officially and lodged in influential memories. This deliberate, evidence-based campaign built an unbreakable case for expanding her role, anchored in cold, hard results instead of fuzzy principles. Even officials philosophically dead set against women in government struggled to dismiss her stellar track record of concrete successes. The fierce rivalry between Wu Zhao and Empress Wang ramped up dramatically through the early 600s and 50s, both women hustling non-stop to cement emperor loyalty and assemble court coalitions. Then children entered the picture, injecting explosive succession drama into the already boiling mix. Empress Wang gave birth to a daughter bittersweet and disappointing, because everyone knew male heirs were critical for locking down dynastic continuity. Wu Zhao, on the other hand, delivered a healthy son, swiftly followed by another huge power surge. Her boys stood as viable future throne contenders. The Empress's little girl simply didn't. Those sons born to Wu Zhao cracked open thrilling new political horizons neither woman had fully anticipated. If fate struck Emperor Gaozong down, or if he deliberately named one of her boys successor, Wu Zhao could vault to the ultra-powerful position of Emperor's mother. That promised long-term security and influence light years beyond her current advisory spot mind-blowing possibility. Yet those precious babies also brewed brand new vulnerabilities and hazards. Imperial succession protocol was insanely complicated and politically radioactive, with strict traditions dictating which sons counted as legitimate heirs. and which mothers earned official recognition, Wu Zhao's unusual status, a recalled concubine. Not the formal wife threw wrenches into all those calculations and armed her enemies with fresh, potent arguments to attack her rising star. Oh man, can you even fathom how the stakes skyrocketed when utter tragedy slammed into the imperial family like a thunderbolt, forever twisting the path of Wu Zhao's skyrocketing career and reshaping the very fabric of Chinese history itself? Empress Wang's precious infant daughter died under these shadowy, mysterious circumstances that left everyone whispering in horror, and Ban Wu Zhao got hit with the gut-wrenching accusation of cold-blooded murder, all to wipe out a tiny potential rival. How could they stoop so low? That charge wasn't just devastating, it was a death sentence hanging by a thread, potentially fatal in every sense. If Wu Zhao was branded guilty of slaughtering an imperial child, she'd face instant execution, dragged to the chopping block alongside all her relatives, friends, and anyone even loosely connected. Total annihilation. And why was it so explosively dangerous? Because it mashed together the deadliest crimes imaginable in imperial China. Outright treason against the sacred royal bloodline, a monstrous violation of those unbreakable moral codes sworn to protect innocent children, and the ultimate betrayal of a trusted insider access to the heart of the palace household. Chilling, right? The air must have thickened with fear. But hold on. This vicious accusation also ripped the mask off her enemies' raw desperation and their total failure to fight her on fair political ground. The suspicious timing, the flimsy circumstances, it all screamed factional revenge far more than solid proof of any crime. Wow, what a crack in their armour. This mess actually handed Wu Zhao a golden window to flip the script entirely, turning potential doom into triumph, but only if she played the political angles with her signature masterful skill. Heart-pounding opportunity amid the chaos, her jaw-dropping response to that murder bombshell. It laid bare her sheer political genius and her unflinching readiness to unleash the most ruthless tactics needed to shield herself and surge ahead. The clever strategies she unleashed in this firestorm would etch unbreakable patterns into her whole future career, defining her relentless climb to the pinnacle of power in the mighty Chinese Empire. What a defining moment. That murder accusation marked the absolute darkest, most perilous hour of Wu Zhao's political saga so far. But oh, it also exposed the shaky core of her foe's assault like never before. Those claims leaned way heavier on toxic court gossip and bitter faction hate than any real evidence, leaving her precious space to maneuver brilliantly if she could seize the narrative and swing public whispers her way. Smart move ahead. Her opening salvo, pure boldness, totally out of left field and electrifying. Ditching weak denials or begging for mercy through stuffy old channels, Wu Zhao charged straight at her accusers like a warrior queen. She kicked off by meticulously piecing together an airtight timeline of the baby's final days, pulling sworn statements from servants, healers, and every witness who'd been in the imperial quarters during that fateful stretch. No stone unturned. What determination. Her digging unearthed killer facts that shredded the murder story to bits. The poor little one had battled sickness for days beforehand, hit with symptoms screaming classic childhood plagues that snatched away countless royal babies, even under top-notch care of the era. Several doctors had poked and prodded the infant, doling out remedies that flat out failed despite their best efforts. And the clincher? Wu Zhao herself was surrounded by other court bigwigs for nearly the entire window, when the supposed poisoning or attack was meant to happen, making it flat out impossible for her to slip in any toxin or lift a violent hand. Evidence mountain, crumbling, yes, but Wu Zhao knew deep in her bones that cold facts alone wouldn't shield her from these venomous, power-driven smears. No, she had to bulldoze the whole debate's foundation, yanking it from petty guilt debates to massive questions about the empire's rock-solid stability and powerhouse governance. Her neck was on the line, unless she painted herself as way more priceless to the emperor and the whole realm than her scheming attackers. High wire act, she nailed that pivot with stunning flair, framing the ugly accusations as just one tentacle of a massive conservative plot to gut Emperor Gaozong's hard-won authority and dismantle the fresh admin reforms that had turbocharged his rule beyond his ancestors. Wu Zhao fired back that her haters were cynically exploiting a baby's heartbreaking death as cover to torpedo bold new governance tricks that gut-punch their cozy old privileges and iron grip on power. Brilliant counter move, take that. This narrative flip was political sorcery, morphing Wu Zhao from scared suspect in a courtroom nightmare into a blazing icon of forward-thinking reform. Pro-modernization officials rallied to her defense, not out of personal fan love, but because slamming her meant torching the whole upgrade agenda they championed. Flip side, her critics got tarred as backward blockers fighting smart changes that actually worked. Genius division. Emperor Gaozong, who'd poured his own political blood, sweat, and treasure into installing Wu Zhao and reaped her admin magic firsthand, clocked the massive threat in a heartbeat. Kicking her out over this? It had broadcast to all that stuffy traditionalists could spike his hires and policies any time with cooked-up scandals and piety plays. His emperor cred would shatter forever if he let grudge-fueled lies dictate his team. No chance. Gaozong's comeback screamed savvy statesmanship and true loyalty to his star player protecting Wu Zhao with steel resolve. Skipping shady backroom probes ripe for faction meddling, he went public. Full formal legal drill, wide open for court eyes and even foreign envoys to watch. Total transparency slammed the door on evidence tampering or twisted testimonies by her foes. Smart shield. Even bigger. He weaponized the probe to audit and beef up Wu Zhao's spot in the government pecking order. Flat-out declaration, win or lose the charges. Her game-changing admin wins demanded expansion-fresh titles, beefier duties, making her bulletproof against future hits. Emperor Flex. That bombshell broadcast crystal clear to every court snake. Gaozong's playbook and red lines. Want in on imperial goodies? Team up with Wu Zhao, not sabotage her. Defy her. Watch yourself sidelined from power hubs and big calls. Game, set, match. The official murder probe dragged methodically over months, dozens of witnesses grilled. Hard evidence dissected by expert panels. Built to probe deep enough for doubters, yet spotlight the case's flimsiness against Wu Zhao. Tension city. All through it, Wu Zhao kept crushing her admin grind with unflappable skill and speed policy huddles. Doc drafting, Diplo and War Council flowing, like the accusations were just pesky flies. Pure pro. This rock-steady vibe hammered home her as the ultimate public servant, obsessed with killer governance over self-preservation. Icon status. Final report. Total exoneration, 0 crime on Wu Zhao for the tragedy. Natural causes. Maybe botched kid meds from era limits. Bigger zinger. Scorch those pushing the smears as reckless idiots harming empire good. Victory lap. But vindication stung with hidden costs, moulding her next chess moves. Those controversy months bared the raw hatred from old guard factions, and their no-holds-barred drive to oust her. Surviving this salvo, no shield from fresh plots. Her perch stayed wobbly son's ironclad formal clout. Nobody could touch lightly. Her fix, audacious beyond her wildest prior stunts, jaw-dropper. Ditching mere advisor tweaks, Wu Zhao plotted a total overhaul of her hierarchy slot, making enemy strikes suicidal. Unlock. Her bond with Gozong and swelling sway over succession games. She'd proven admin policy gold, but those gigs. Still underling roles erasable by whims. She craved eternal, law-shielded might. Her master plan. Weaponize mom status to her heir potential sons, demanding official wife upgrade over recalled concubine tag. Boom-beefed legal armor, ritual pomp, plus her boys as legit throne shots, locking dynasty stake forever. But pulling it off. Epic battle against centuries of marriage succession iron rules. No emperor ever hoisted dad's ex-concubine to empress's nuts and bolts shock, plus cosmic symbolism, would ignite massive traditionalist fury. Could she conquer? Oh wow, just imagine the sheer determination and cunning as Wu Zhao dove headfirst into prepping for this monumental campaign, methodically forging unbreakable support from every key group whose cheers would decide victory or defeat. Talk about strategic mastery on fire. She nurtured deep ties with tough military commanders who absolutely loved her sharp insights on battle planning and smart resource juggling. She built solid alliances with provincial governors who couldn't get enough of her spot-on grasp of local money woes and admin headaches. And most crucially, she poured energy into bonding with those fresh-faced younger court officials who were wide open to bold new governance ideas and way less chained to old rules blocking women from real political power. What a savvy network she was weaving. This intense coalition building demanded Wu Zhao prove her worth to each crew in ways that hit them right where it counted, tailored perfectly to their burning interests and worries. Military big shots craved hard proof that her sway meant fatter budgets and smarter strategies for their frontline fights. Provincial bosses needed solid evidence her policy tweaks boosted tax flows and calmed local chaos. Court insiders wanted rock-solid guarantees that backing her would rocket their careers and political dreams. How brilliantly she read the room every time. Wu Zhao delivered those proofs through a string of smash-hit policy wins that flaunted her admin superpowers while racking up serious political IOUs across-the-board genius multitasking. She rolled out fresh systems for army supplies and logistics that supercharge border battles against those fierce Turkish and Korean forces, efficiency skyrocketing. She invented clever new ways for tax gathering and farm growth that pumped up imperial coffers while easing the squeeze on everyday folks. She set up groundbreaking rules for evaluating and promoting talent that made government jobs irresistible to sharp minds from all walks of life, not just elites. Every single one of those triumphs pulled double or triple duty in Wu Zhao's grand master plan. They slammed home concrete proof of her massive value to running the empire. Shutting down critics who whined her pull was just personal fluff instead of pro-level skill. They spun webs of loyal officials and officers with skin in the game for keeping and growing her clout. And best of all, they showed beyond doubt that her fresh governance style delivered superior results over dusty old methods, handing Emperor Gaozong ironclad practical excuses to champion her rise, way beyond mere affection or loyalty. Results don't lie, brilliant. Feeling rock solid in her political fortress, Wu Zhao finally greenlit the nail-biting final push for official Empress Crown Heart racing yet. This meant staring down Empress Wang head-on, plus her massive family web propping up the current marriage, turning it into the riskiest roll of the dice in her entire career. Win big, unheard of power and iron security. Crash and burn. Exile, or worse, execution for her and her precious kids. Stakes through the roof, the campaign's killer opening. It snuck in from this totally unexpected angle, spotlighting Wu Zhao's deep dive mastery of emperor psychology and court chess pure sophistication. Instead of bluntly demanding Gaozong dump his wife, she started softly probing if his current home setup really backed his crushing ruling duties and personal well-being like it should. Subtle seeds planted. Wu Zhao's tactic was sneaky indirect, but relentlessly systematic, loved the precision. In policy chats, she'd casually drop how the emperor could crush it even harder with a true partner who got the insane twists of imperial admin. In quiet private talks, she'd voice real worry over his health and mounting stress, hinting he deserved someone dishing both brainy companionship and heartfelt support through the reign's brutal storms. Those chats were engineered like clockwork to sprout dissatisfaction with his home life without ever looking like self-promotion clever, right? Wu Zhao craved Gaozong drawing his own aha moments about how Empress Wang fell short. So any fixes felt like his brainchild, not her sneaky push. And boom, it clicked perfectly as planned. Emperor Gaozong started stacking his electric productive sessions with Wu Zhao packed with brain fireworks and real political wins against his stiff, ritual-heavy bond with Empress Wang, mostly irrelevant to his emperor grind. The gap grew glaring and maddening as he clocked how much richer satisfaction and backup he got from Wu Zhao over his official spouse. Frustration building. That brewing unrest got supercharged by Wu Zhao's non-stop showcases of her admin wizardry and political genius. A brutal wave of crises slammed the empire, testing response muscle, devastating floods drowning southern provinces, Korean diplomacy exploding into threats, Western rebellions sparking chaos. Wu Zhao's crisis plays, lightning fast, thorough, and way superior to clunky traditional roots hero mode. Her flood relief plans drew from real ag econ smarts, not textbook fluff. Her military reads nailed logistics and supply chains, ditching vague war principles. Her rebellion fixes unpacked regional politics and ethnic ties with nuance, skipping blunt hammer punishments. Emperor Gaozong couldn't ignore it. Wu Zhao reliably out-advised everyone, even the so-called experts. That side-by-side made him fume at his outdated advisory crew's limits, while cherishing her standout gifts for killer governance, more than ever. The divide hit hardest, comparing Wu Zhao's firepower to Empress Wang's zero role in any empire fires. The Empress stuck to pretty ceremonies and household fluff feeling tiny next to life or death ruling calls. Gaozong started doubting if his home setup fit a ruler needing max backup for steering the planet's biggest, trickiest empire. Wu Zhao tracked his shifting vibes like a hawk, prepping for that make or break chat, deciding her fate. She knew, one shot only, with timing, delivery and reasoning flawless for the win. Every triumph over the last decade, pure prep for this ultimate high stakes, high reward instant edge of your seat. That pivotal talk finally dropped in a cozy private session, reviewing governor reports on fresh reform wins. Chat flowed naturally to big picture efficiency and the emperor's desperate need for all-in support handling imperial beasts. Wu Zhao kicked off honoring Gaozong's crushing loads, ruling Tang, stressing how admin exploded in complexity versus old days. Past emperors leaned on simpler setups and smaller advisor circles, but today's monsters demanded sharper, fuller decision and rollout tools. Building from there, she eased into probing if his personal and home life truly propped his pro duties. Wu Zhao floated that top-tier rule needed more than solid advisors, intimate partners bringing brainy teamwork, heart support, and hands-on help with the non-stop, decision flood-defining emperor life. Her shaded dig at Empress Wang, soft but crystal emperor, deserved a real governing partner, grasping admin mazes and adding meat to policy and strategy. Current empress, nice as she might be personally, just lacked the know-how, background, or chops for it. Gaozong's reaction, proof her long prep nailed it. He confessed, thinking the same, seeing his ruling burdens unsupported by home setup. Admitted his best, most fulfilling empire talks were with Wu Zhao, not his wife, personally annoying and work inefficient. Oh my goodness, the momentum was building to an absolute fever pitch. More thrillingly, Emperor Gaozong started diving deep into the real-world nuts and bolts of shaking up his marriage to perfectly sync his personal life with the crushing demands of ruling. He straight up asked Wu Zhao to dig into historical precedents and the exact legal hoops needed to divorce Empress Wang and crown someone way more fitting as imperial wife. Can you feel the electricity of that moment? That request? It was the explosive breakthrough Wu Zhao had poured years of blood, sweat, and genius into chasing. The emperor wasn't just mulling her idea. He was full-on plotting to make it happen and pulling her in as his trusted partner to steer the insanely complicated process. Her wild dream of leaping from concubine to empress wasn't some far-off fantasy anymore. It was morphing into a right-now, tangible project that could totally remake the empire's power structure and ripple through all of Chinese society. Heart-pounding, right? But Wu Zhao, ever the razor-sharp realist, knew the toughest, most life-threatening stretch of her campaign was only just kicking off. Brace yourself. Swaying Gaozong was merely step one in a brutal marathon where she'd have to smash through towering walls of resistance from entrenched court factions, rigid religious leaders, and rock-solid conservative opinion echoing across the entire empire. The pressure must have been suffocating. Those political and cultural roadblocks to her never-before-seen rise would push every ounce of skill she'd honed and every alliance she'd forged during her jaw-dropping climb to their absolute limits. The fight to snatch the Empress crown would explode across multiple battlefields at once, demanding she prove not only her personal brilliance, but her mastery at juggling intricate coalitions and dancing through deadly institutional minefields. What an epic showdown. victory would catapult her to the most powerful woman in all Chinese history. Unimaginable glory. But defeat, it could wipe out everything she'd sacrificed and built, likely ending in exile or even execution for her and her beloved children. The stakes were sky high, and the outcome would shape not just her own destiny, but the entire future trajectory of the Tang dynasty and women's place in Chinese politics for generations. Chills. The all-out campaign to crown Wu Zetian Empress launched in deadly earnest. And oh boy, it would go down as the single most tangled, high-wire political operation in Tang history. Wu Zetian grasped crystal clear that snagging the emperor's nod was nowhere near enough. She had to systematically tear down centuries of ironclad legal tradition, religious dogma, and social norms that screamed her elevation was flat out impossible. Daunting doesn't even cover it. Her opening gauntlet, pinpointing and neutralizing every predictable hotspot of opposition before it could fully ignite once her plans leaked. The deadliest pushback would thunder in from Empress Wang's clan. The mighty, prestige-drenched Wang family, who'd bet everything on their daughter's throne perch. They would claw, scratch, and fight like cornered tigers to guard their influence and block rivals from the ultimate power jackpot. Fierce, Wu Zetian kicked off with this exhaustive, almost surgical breakdown of the Wang network, mapping every alliance thread, every fat economic interest, every hidden weak spot ripe for leverage. She uncovered how their dominance balanced on shaky pillars, just begging for careful nudging. The Wangs monopolized juicy government contracts for army gear and massive building projects, cash cows that also chained them to imperial favor. Their bureaucratic grip clustered in key departments and regions stuffed with relatives' perfect bottlenecks for reform strikes. And crucially, their coalition housed ambitious players whose loyalty was purely transactional, not heartfelt prime targets for sweeter counteroffers from rising factions. Wu Zetian crafted this devastating multi-angle plan to erode the Wang clan's fight-back muscle. She hunted down backup suppliers for their locked contracts, proving they weren't untouchable, and that open bidding could slash costs and boost quality. She sparked efficiency personnel audits in Wang-heavy zones officially for better admin, secretly to swap loyalists for her sympathizers. Even sneakier, she quietly wooed frustrated younger Wang kin, chafing under old clan ceilings, dangling fast-track promotions and bigger roles for staying neutral or flipping to her side during the coming storm. Wu Zetian knew splitting enemies often crushed them faster than head-on war. Brilliant divide and conquer. While chipping away at the Wang fortress, Wu Zetian unleashed this dazzling, multi-layered propaganda blitz to prime public minds for her earth-shaking rise. She had to tackle head-on those deep-rooted cultural and religious blocks, making a female empress feel utterly unthinkable to most Chinese souls. The monster hurdle? Confucian thought flat-out banned women from top political power, branding female rule a cosmic insult guaranteed to unleash chaos and dynasty doom. Buddhist and Taoist traditions, though sometimes bendier on gender, mostly got read as backing male dominance in politics. Wu Zetian had to ingeniously twist those same traditions to champion her cause talk about intellectual judo. Her prep from years of intense study shone here. She bankrolled scholarly digs recombing ancient texts and forgotten history for any scrap-backing strong female leaders. She sponsored packed conferences and fiery debates among court brains on true meanings of old wisdom about rule and leadership, all framed as pure academic pursuit, no obvious propaganda vibe. Wu Zhao grasped that slamming traditions head-on would spark backlash firestorms, but gentle discoveries of overlooked truths could slowly sway elite minds. Her funded projects unearthed dusty tales of thriving women rulers, reframed classics long twisted against female power, and spun fresh theology, tying gender to legitimacy in bold new ways. Those breakthroughs spread fast through court circles and scholar webs, laying sturdy intellectual groundwork for swallowing Wu Zhao as Empress game changer. At the same time, Wu Zhao hustled hard to lock down military muscle, knowing raw political power in imperial China ultimately rested on commanding swords when push came to shove. Her deep involvement in strategy and logistics had already earned her thick contacts among pro-officers who prized results over stuffy protocol. She methodically deepened bonds with top commanders, especially ones who'd tasted wins from her reforms and tips. Those soldiers had watched her insights supercharge their ops, making them far readier to back her rise despite gender grumbles or precedent worries. Her military courtship stayed ultra-practical and results-driven classic, Wu Zhao. No fluffy loyalty oaths or ideology pitches. She just kept proving non-stop value via bigger budgets, tighter coordination, and slicker logistics. Officers got it. Her Empress win meant ongoing access to her brainpower. Her fall could saddle them with dumber admin. Smart incentive. She also quietly sketched backup plans for possible violent blowback. Some diehards might choose rebellion or assassination over accepting a woman ruler. Prep included tagging loyal units for palace defense, building secret comms for quick response, and mapping escape routes to shield her family and core backers if things exploded. Forethought on steroids. That military layer got extra tricky, balancing secrecy versus openness. Too loud preps could tip enemies for early strikes. Too quiet left her exposed to surprise violence. She constantly fine-tuned transparency for allies versus blackout for foes as the landscape shifted. Nail-biting tightrope. All those threads, political, military, religious, even international prep, were racing toward one explosive convergence where Emperor Gaozong would have to drop final calls on divorce and remarriage. Wu Zhao's groundwork had built feasible paths, but actually pulling it off still meant dodging massive risks and wild complications ahead. Oh man, can you feel the tension mounting like a storm about to break? The timing for that final make-or-break decision wasn't in Wu Zhao's hands alone, but she'd foreseen every twist and prepped like a chess grandmaster during her epic strategic build-up. Empress Wang's die-hard supporters were spiraling into pure desperation as they watched the unstoppable momentum of events unfolding, pushing them toward wild, desperate countermeasures that could either torpedo Wu Zhao's whole campaign or, ironically, hand her the perfect excuse to speed it up. How precarious. Court gossip and wild speculation about the Emperor's secret plans had exploded to feverish levels, making it nearly impossible to keep the marriage shake-up under wraps. Too many whispers flying among officials and sharp-eyed observers. Everyone knew massive changes were brewing, cranking the pressure to either slam through the plans lightning fast or scrap them entirely to dodge leaks that enemies could weaponize into disaster. The walls were closing in. But the real gut punch, Wu Zhao's own spot, was turning razor thin as her foes realized time was slipping away to block her rise. Every extra day in that fuzzy, unprotected status left her wide open to sneaky, preemptive strikes aimed at wiping her out before she could grab the unbreakable legal shields of Empress rank. Vulnerability city talk about living on the edge. All these forces crashing together brewed a nightmare where stalling grew deadlier than charging ahead, shoving Wu Zhao and Emperor Gaozong to hit the accelerator and brace for the ultimate showdown that wouldn't just seal her fate, but redefine China's imperial power forever. Pulse racing stuff. Then, the explosive climax hit when Emperor Gaozong dropped the bombshell, announcing a grand formal imperial council to hash out changes to the marriage setup. That declaration flipped months of shadowy backroom chess into a blazing public crisis, forcing every player to bare their cards openly and swallow the fallout. No more hiding. Wu Zhao knew in her bones this council was the grand finale of over a decade's relentless grind. Everything on the line. Triumph, Empress crown, and godlike power to mold Chinese society in her visionary image. Flop, exile or execution, plus total ruin for every soul who'd backed her dreams. Unbearable stakes, nothing higher imaginable. The verdict hinged on her wizardry, at wrangling wild political currents under crushing pressure, all while faking that expected humble deference women had to show in imperial China. She'd need to blend fierce boldness with silky subtlety, rock-solid confidence with perfect deference, commanding presence with bow-low respect in her career's defining performance. Could she pull off the impossible? The fate-deciding Imperial Council assembled with heavyweights from every corner of Chinese power military brass rubbing shoulders with Confucian sages, Buddhist monks clashing wits with Taoist priests, provincial governors schmoozing court paper pushers. That explosive mix of views guaranteed every pro and con for Wu Zhao's rise got ripped apart under the microscope intense. Emperor Gaozong kicked it off with a masterfully scripted speech, hammering the brutal admin headaches and urgent need for fresh fixes to wild new problems. He sidestepped naming Wu Zhao outright, zeroing in on big picture ideals. Pick the absolute best talent for key roles. Tradition be damned. Bold framing. His tactic. Strategically sharp, but a high-stakes gamble pitching it as pure efficiency over favoritism opened the floodgates for brutal dives into Wu Zhao's skills and record. Vindication or vulnerability. It could crown her genius or let foes carve out fatal flaws. Debates raged across history's echoes, admin impacts, religious red flags, and global ripple effects. Her champions unleashed scholar digs, soldier testimonials, policy home runs flaunting her brilliance. Detractors screamed tradition's sanctity, cosmic imbalance fears, foreign vultures eyeing weakness, fireworks. Finally, after grueling days of no-holds-barred wrangling, the council's verdict backed Wu Zhao's ascent, spotlighting her proven chops while nodding to the earth-shaking novelty. Victory snatched from jaws. The crowning glory unfolded on a bone-chilling January dawn, the formal rite blasting Wu Zhao as Empress Wu. Emperor Gaozong hailed her empress and ruling partner for the Tang juggernaut. Empress Wu claimed her glittering phoenix crown and jade seal with flawless poise and grace iconic. A girl who'd slinked into court as a zero-power concubine had methodically reinvented herself as China's second most mighty figure after the emperor. Her leap, not solo glory, but a seismic quake to age-old myths on gender, might, and rule that shackled society for a millennium plus. Revolutionary. In the electrifying years ahead, Empress Wu unleashed tidal wave reforms across bureaucracy, economy, law, and war machine. She supersized the exam system for fairer talent hunts, turbo-boosted roads and taxes, ironed out legal kinks for consistency, and forged tighter military sync. Her moves delivered real wins. Empire tougher, backing surging from officials, merchants, farmers, troops. Transformative. Sure, aristocratic holdouts snarled on, birthing plots, but Empress Wu's spy webs, faithful armies, and grassroots love crushed threats with iron efficiency. Her rule modernized China's gears, flung doors wide for merit over birth, etching an eternal mark. The concubine turned emperor nailed what no woman before or since touched in Chinese annals, a legacy still firing debates on leadership, gender, political fire over 1,300 years post-mortem. Inspiring. Her saga from helpless teen to top dog. History's grip-tightest yarn of one soul smashing impossible walls. Proving smarts, grit, and vision let legends rewrite worlds. sleep.